The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. A couple interesting stories for you today. Number one, Merriam-Webster Dictionary has announced a new word in their dictionary. That word is sheeple. Sheeple, of course, is a portmanteau, a combination of sheep and people, and it informally means sort of easily influenced people, right? So we talk about politicians influencing the sheeple with their propaganda or whatever. So they are similar to sheep in a sense that sheep can be herded by a herding dog.
Is that something from Animal Farm too? It sounds like one of those Orwellian terms.
I'm not. That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I think that may be the origin.
I've never read Animal Farm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, at what point does a word become from slang and these kind of urban dictionary terms all the way to something that's recognized by Merriam-Webster? And it's interesting how Merriam-Webster has that sort of authority over our language, no?
Yeah, well, you could argue that Merriam-Webster is reflecting what is happening with language, but you're right in the sense that at some point they're saying yes or no as to whether a word should or shouldn't be in there. We would hope to think that they're reacting to the public circumstances of a word, but yeah, I mean, they do have authority in a sense.
And you've got to think that after Merriam-Webster adds it to their dictionary, then other dictionaries are going to follow suit, like Oxford and the rest of them. But my spell check didn't have sheeple as a word yet, so until that happens, I'm not considering it a word.
Is there an auto update to that, though? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if once a word is added to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, it would be reflected in Windows spell check, you know?
Probably not yet. I think that takes some time. Is
there a rivalry between Merriam-Webster and the Oxford English Dictionary? Do you know?
There should be. I think there ought to be. They could have, different competitions. They have to play sports against each other. All these sorts of events they have to put together.
I like the sound of that. So, but to get back to the story, the controversy, there was a little bit of controversy over whether or not sheeple should be included. But the real controversy is that the dictionary is using Apple users as an example, or in other words, to explain the definition of sheeple. And that's sort of ad hominem in a sense, in that, you know how there's this Apple fandom sort of stereotype, right? And so some people aren't thrilled that Merriam-Webster is using Apple as an example to show what it means to be talking about sheeple.
So it shows the word, how you pronounce the word, the definition, and then an example.
That's exactly right.
That's a real-world example. People are always on their phones nowadays. I mean, there's usually some generic story about, Jim went to the store, and that describes a certain vocabulary word. But people are on their phones right now. It makes a lot more sense that you use a term that's associated with Apple.
Oh, I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing. But but I'm not an Apple fan, like one of these fanboys. I've never had Apple products other than one iPod. And to be quite frank, it wasn't that great.
And even from that, you're still recovering.
Let's talk about Facebook. Facebook is now under fire again for revelations that it's targeting potentially vulnerable youth who need a confidence boost to facilitate predatory advertising practices. The allegation was revealed this morning, or yesterday morning, I guess now it is. Well, they're 13 hours ahead. Who knows when it was, but it was over the last 24 hours by The Australian, which obtained internal documents from the social media giant, which reportedly show how Facebook can exploit the moods and insecurities of teenagers for the benefit of advertisers. And I think we can all sort of imagine how this happens. Facebook's algorithm is able to determine from one's posts and the pages that they're visiting whether they may be in a particularly vulnerable mood, and then the ad selection for ads that are shown to those individuals are the types of things that one would be more likely to click if they are in a vulnerable mood.
Interesting. Yeah, I have to wonder what kind of ads they would appeal to, though. Would it be something like drugs that are meant to, to help people who have depression?
Right.
Or is it something, maybe just to distract from the condition that you have, like going to some sort of sporting event? Because I think, whatever ads are playing or showing next to the Facebook pages really makes the difference there.
Well, you know how Facebook, a lot of the sponsored content, it's not an advertising per se, but it's that as you're scrolling your news feed, things will show up that look like newsfeed items, but they're sponsored content, right? And so, I mean, let's just think it through. Like if you're in a particularly vulnerable mood and there's an ad for like Tony Robbins, the inspirational speaker, and a video automatically starts playing, you might be more likely to click over to it and maybe sign up for one of his personal coaching seminars, right? I mean,
is that really so bad though? Because I mean, if like the ultimate result is that you're able to help your depression or whatever bad mood that you're in, I
that's
think
how
that's a good
defenders
thing.
defend this. They say, wait a second, so you're saying that Facebook's algorithm is so good that it's actually able to, on a minute-by-minute basis, tailor what you're seeing to what you might benefit from or be interested in. Why is that bad? That's the argument defending. But of course, the counter to that is that a lot of these allowing advertisers to target in this way is some kind of violation of privacy or in some way intrusive, or where does it end, slippery slope arguments, etc.
Yeah, there's really two sides to that coin. You could argue that you're using social engineering for some sort of commercial benefit.
Right.
Or, I mean, there's plenty of professions, though, that are geared towards helping people with mental illness or depression or whatever else. So, I mean, it's not like we go after psychiatrists and psychologists for trying to help people with the same conditions.
No, but are they showing up are psychiatrists hanging out? Maybe some are, I don't know. Are psychiatrists hanging out outside of what's an example? I don't know, some event where you might have more people that could benefit.
An emo concert?
An emo con, yeah, exactly. If all of a sudden you've got psychiatrists hanging out flyers outside of a hardcore or emo show, I don't know, maybe there's something wrong with that.
I see what you're saying. I just think that these types of illnesses are often ones where people don't really reach out to try to get help.
Sure.
Maybe because they feel embarrassed about it, or they just don't care to solve the issues that they're in.
And they're I mean, it's highly stigmatized. I think the first thing you said, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, if there's, alternative ways or just innovative ways to try to help people that have those issues, I think it's a good idea at least to think about.
Maybe this will save lives.
It could.
I mean, I think individuals who are defending this are saying, mathematically, there will probably be some lives saved because of an algorithm that can determine when someone is in a depressed or down mood.
Well, when you're talking about Facebook, maybe they have 1 billion accounts by now. Certainly that number is in the millions. So you could always do the math and find at least a handful of people who would be affected positively by this.
No doubt about it. Let's talk about the war on drugs. Congress is blocking the Justice Department from spending any money that interferes with state medical marijuana laws. This is good news. In the newly unveiled budget, we talked on the regular show today how Congress has decided to go against what Donald Trump wants and actually increase funding to a number of different science areas of science research. Lawmakers have also decided to include a provision known as the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment, which allows states to carry on crafting their own marijuana policies without fear of federal intervention. We've talked before, Pat, about how Republicans, even without repealing the Affordable Care Act, could figure out ways to severely hamper it by not funding certain aspects of it. This is sort of the opposite, which is we've had Jeff Sessions come in as Attorney General. We know Jeff Sessions is a big fan of the war on drugs. He is a big antagonist of marijuana.
He said good people don't smoke marijuana.
Exactly.
He said that he used to like the KKK before that he found out that they smoked marijuana.
So the opposite is happening here, which is instead of providing money for Jeff Sessions' Justice Department to go after states that have legalized or decriminalized medical or recreational marijuana, the new budget says whatever Jeff Sessions would like to do, we are not allowing for any money to be spent by the federal government going against state legalization or decriminalization of marijuana. And this is a very good thing.
Yeah, it is. And I think the Republicans trying to sneak this into that bill there it goes to show that maybe they're coming around on this issue finally, especially when it pertains to medical marijuana, because I have a trouble believing that, many of these Republicans are actually against marijuana. Maybe they smoked it themselves in the 70s and then became Republicans and had to adopt some sort of anti-drug message to appeal to, the family values types, the Christian right. But deep in their hearts, they know it violates civil liberties to go after marijuana, and then it's really not that dangerous of a drug. So I think this is a good sign.
If you support states' rights, then you have to support states' rights, right? You don't just say, well, with marijuana, it's different because I don't like marijuana. And I think you're probably right on more issues than just marijuana. I think on the issue of same-sex marriage, I'm not saying all Republicans are for same-sex marriage, but what I am saying is that there's definitely Republicans who keep talking about it because it's a way to raise money. Also applies, I would assume, there's a long list of issues where I think you're raising money by taking a position, but personally, do they really care about these issues? I don't know.
Especially because I think now they realize that they're fighting a losing battle, because the majority of people in the United States now are for marijuana being legalized, are for same-sex marriage, and that trend is going to continue. So if they want to keep on to their seats long term, they're going to have to evolve on those issues.
Yes, the type of evolution that more Republicans clearly will admit that they're doing. Well, actually, they probably won't admit it, but at least we'll be able to observe it.
An evolution they can believe in.
Yes, which again also, I mean, that's another issue, right? Do you believe in climate science or not? There's definitely Republicans that express skepticism because it helps them with their constituents, but they're probably on the side of science on that issue.
I was going to make the point that the downside to marijuana is that you can't, not allowing it is that just people can't smoke marijuana in the privacy of their own homes, and that isn't nearly as bad as, say, the climate change or, women getting abortions and the repercussions that can have. But because of the drug policy that we have, that means a lot of people get incarcerated unjustly. So all of these are bad. Not
to mention that we also have a completely disproportionate application of drug laws in a way that is both racist and classist. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we've talked about those issues before. That's it for the bonus show. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.